Hello again, YouTube. This is Mazna with another video in my new series. I don't have a title for it yet. Maybe I'll make one, but my new series, in which I create videos to help amateur and intermediate iOS developers learn how to do various functions with the iOS SDK. So in this video, I had a cool idea where I thought maybe it would be cool if I sort of built a simple app, and it wasn't so much a tutorial so much as it was showing YouTube my development process, because I don't know everything. And I thought it would be cool to make a Magic 8-Ball app. So I've never made one before, and I'm probably going to leave most of this unedited. And I'm just going to show you what it's like for me to make an app from scratch. So it's not going to be too complex. I'm thinking maybe a bit of maybe a small shake animation. I'm going to go to Wikipedia for a standard list of Magic 8-Ball sayings, and I'm going to generate or create an array and then generate a random number and then pick from the array whatever saying corresponds with that number. So as you can see on my desktop, I have a Magic 8-Ball image that I made myself in Photoshop, and I'll provide that for download. I'll provide the source code as I do with my other videos. But let's get started. So of course we're going to begin by creating a new project in Xcode. I'm going to go with single view application, and we'll call it Magic 8. Okay, so first let's begin by dragging the 8-ball image into the supporting files group in Xcode. And I like to have copy items into destinations group folder if needed checked off. What this does is any files you import into your Xcode project, if you have this checked off, it'll make a duplicate and copy it into the folder where all the files are for that particular Xcode project. And the reason I like to do that is because sometimes, actually a lot of the time when I'm creating an app, I'm doing it with someone else, or someone else wants to see the source code, or sometimes I like to make a backup copy in a zip. And if you don't have the files copied, when you try to send it to someone else, those files won't be there. And that can end with a lot of problems and issues that you could have avoided if you just had that checked off. So yes, it does make a duplicate, which will use a little bit of extra space on your hard drive, but it's well worth the trouble you would face if you didn't copy any files you import. So I'm going to click Finish. And now we've got that imported into our Xcode project, and we can reference it by just opening the file 8.png. So let's go to our viewcontroller.zib, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create an instance of image view, and we're going to make the image view's image the 8-ball. So as you can see, actually, you can see this is very large. This is definitely larger than an iPhone screen. And the reason for this is with this app, I'm going to support the Retina display on the iPhone. And supporting Retina display is really simple. You just make your images double the resolution or double the size. And so when it's shrunk down to fit on an iPhone screen, the resolution is doubled essentially. You have twice as many pixels, twice as much pixel data in that half-sized area. So the dimensions are, let me get those real quick. 500 by 460. So we're going to divide that in half. So that'll be 250 by 230. So I'm going to make an image view, and I'm going to give it a width of 250 and a height of 230. I'm going to place it right in the center, and I'm going to set the image to 8. And there's our 8-ball. So let's change the background. Actually, this is off center a little bit because when I created the image, I was going to add a shadow, which I forgot to do. But if you center it, it won't be centered. It won't look like it's centered. So just move it over to the right a little bit. Right there should be good. Okay, so so now let's change the background color. You can see it's gray by default, but I don't think that looks very good. So How about that? That looks pretty good, right? So we'll leave it like that. And now we save. And so if we launch our app, we'll just have a picture of a magic 8-ball, and it will do nothing. Perfect. And just for styling purposes, I'm going to change the top bar of the screen, the style bar. I'm going to change that to translucent. So UI application, shared application, set status bar style, UI status bar style, black translucent. And I think that'll look a little better. Let's take a look. Yeah, it definitely looks better. I definitely like that more. Okay, let's quit the app now, or quit the simulator. All right, so now the first thing we need to do is we're going to create an array of possible sayings that the 8-ball will spit out upon the user shaking their device. So I'm going to go to Wikipedia, Magic 8-ball sayings wiki, and sure enough, Wikipedia has all the possible sayings of a magic 8-ball. So let's see, if I copy these, am I going to get the image copied as well? I hope not. Let's open up text edit. Okay, well, they're there. So I'm just going to delete all those. Actually, I could do it much more efficiently. Perfect. Actually, I'm going to undo all that. And since I need this to be put into an NS array, I'm going to replace all of these with there we go. And now I just have to put quotes down the right, quotes and commas. Perfect, so now I can just copy this. Into my code. And so my view controller.h, I'm going to add an instance variable, an NS array, magic ball sayings. And now in my view did load, I'm going to initialize that. Magic ball sayings equals NS array with objects. Perfect. All right. So now go to our zib and let's put a label in the triangle in the 8-ball. So now one problem we're going to face is the triangle is too small. So I'm just going to ignore it and let the text sit on top of it. And if it looks a little silly, so be it. I don't care much right now about that. Okay. And I'm going to make sure that if the text is too big to fit, that it automatically, there we go, auto shrink. Okay, good. Now I have to make an IB outlet to connect that label so we can access it in our coding. Saying label. Let's connect that. And save. And so now, just so you can see how this is going to work, right when it loads, let's plug a random saying in there. So I'm going to use arc4random as my random number generator, and the reason I'm going to do that is because when you use random, there's a modulo bias. If you don't know what that means, please look it up on Wikipedia because you probably won't understand it if I explain it really quickly. But basically, when you use rand and the number of possibilities in your array, in this case it's something like 20, doesn't evenly divide into the upper range of what the rand function will generate, there's a bias in which smaller numbers will get picked a little bit more than the bigger numbers because you have a remainder. So arc4 random, that happens a lot less. It still happens a very small bit, but not nearly as much. And I actually think there's a function, something like arc4 uniform or arc4 random uniform, that I think it actually eliminates the bias completely. But since we're working with not a very big set of data, arc4 random should suffice. So in a string, random saying equals magic ball sayings object at index arc4 random modulo magic ball sayings count. So we're going to generate a random number and then use modulo so that we receive an integer in the range of 0 to whatever, however many items are in this array. So 20, 21, whatever it is. And so now let's set that random saying to the label. So saying label text equals a random saying. Okay, let's quit it and see if something else comes up. Let's do it again. All right, so it works basically. Now the only thing we need to do is respond to when the user shakes. So you can simulate a shake gesture, but we don't have any response to it. So responding to a shake gesture is actually marvelously simple. So we need to implement two methods. The first is can become first responder, and we simply return yes. So what this means is when this is on screen, the application or the window will try to make this view this view controller or its view the first responder, which means it can respond to system-wide events like a shake gesture. And then the second thing we have to implement is motion ended with event. So this will get called when any kind of motion or a shake gesture, for example, ends as a result of the user shaking their device. And so now we can copy this code from here and paste it in here. So let's see what happens. Cool, it works. So the last thing I thought would be cool to implement would be a little animation. So first, the user shakes it, and then the 8-ball shakes, and then the text label will disappear, and then it'll slowly dissolve back in, or the alpha will be faded in up to 1. So let's quit this again. Okay, and so this may take a little bit of trial and error because I've never done this particular kind of animation. So, okay, so first, when the motion ends, I'm going to hide the text label. As a matter of fact, we're going to hide it by default. Saying label alpha equals 0. So alpha is a property which you can set to change the alpha value of a view, and alpha being opacity. So 0 means it's transparent, and then it's continuous, anything from 0 to 1. Okay, so now right when the shaking ends, we're going to set alpha to 0. Okay, then we're going to do a little tiny shake animation. So UI view begin animations nil, context nil. So this is anything in this next block of code is an animation that the view will display or will automatically generate and display on screen. So animations in the iOS is very, very simple, which is obviously fantastic for developers. And you probably could have guessed that because there's so many cool apps with so many awesome animations like games and stuff, and it's honestly very simple. Once you know how to do the basic motions, you can kind of build on top of that to make more complex animations and motions of your views yourself. Okay, so now we need a link to the 8-ball. so we can move it. So have to add another outlet, magic ball. To connect that. And now we're just going to move it left and right really quickly. So we're going to set the animation duration for about 0.2 seconds. And so now CG rect frame, we get the frame, the current frame of the 8-ball. So we can start from there. And we're going to move its x coordinate to the left a little bit. So frame origin x minus equals 10. And then we have to give that new frame back to the 8-ball. Magic ball frame equals frame. And then we commit the animations. So let's see what happens so far. So shake, and it moves to the left. So now, when this ends, we got to shake it back to the right. So let's copy this code here. And we're gonna do plus 10 to put it back where it was. And we're gonna send a timer that will run after 0.2 seconds. Now, probably the safer way to do this is to use completion blocks, so that you can use block programming, so that after a view or after an animation ends, another animation can be triggered. And the reason I'm not going to do that is because the last time I tried to do that, it wasn't working, and for the life of me, I couldn't figure it out. I checked, Stack Overflow and every resource I could find from Apple, and my code looked exactly as it was supposed to based on what I read. And for some reason, the completion block animations weren't being triggered. So just because I don't want to run into that problem here, I'm just gonna use good old-fashioned timers, which essentially is kind of how this works in the back end anyway. When you're dealing with animations, everything is time dependent. So I'm just gonna do it manually. So I'm gonna make it a timer, scheduled timer with time interval. No, scheduled timer with time interval. So 0.2 seconds. Target self. Selector is the method that it's going to call after 0.2 seconds. Shake right. Target self meaning this class, this object. User info nil. That's in case you want to pass some kind of information to the receiving method. Unnecessary. And repeats no. Okay, so let's save that. And so let's see what happens now. So we shake it. So it moves back and forth. And then let's move it a little bit more to the right. So we're going to copy this, but we're going to set it off after 0.4 seconds. So let's run that. Let's shake it. Looks a little silly, but since this is just a simple little nonsense app, I'm okay with it not working. If I was going to submit this to the App Store, yes, I would. And hopefully you would too. You'd make sure this was a little more appealing. But for right now, it's fine for what we're doing. So after all that shaking, we'll throw off a final timer, which will change the text, pick a random saying, change the text. And we'll animate it back into view. So I need to grab this. Actually, that can stay there. That's fine. UI view, begin animations nil, context nil. Saying label alpha equals 1.0. And UI view commit animations. Okay, so let's shake it. Alright, so it sort of works. So it just occurred to me that we could actually smoothen out that second part by removing this and then moving this 20, but taking twice as long. So let's see how that looks. Okay, and now we actually have to move it back another 10, so shake left. And we'll throw that off after 0.6 as well. It's okay if it kind of coincides with the appearing of the saying label. So 0.2 and -10. And let's take a final look. Good enough for me. So that concludes this video. I hope you had fun. I did. I think this was a pretty cool app. I never built anything quite like this. It was simple, but I think it came out pretty cool. And hopefully you learned something. And I'm going to provide the source code and the 8-ball image should you decide to make your own 8-ball app. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for my next video.